Mini steak and cheese sub. Hey folks, it's Barry here. Hope you're well. Welcome to My Virgin Kitchen, the cooking show by self-taught cooks, inspiring you to get in the kitchen, laugh and learn. That's what we do, we laugh and learn. Today's video is a fun day where, as long as it's about food and we're having fun, we're gonna do it. And it is a mini food suggested by Kevin and also Renee. Kevin and Renee, that sounds like a kind of like 80s power ballad duet kind of thing going on. We can rely on each other. I hate wigs. This is gonna be a mini cheese steak. Cheese steak. I love that word. I'm in love with that word. I once made the mistake of doing a homemade Philly cheese steak. That's what I referenced it as in the video. And let's just say the comments, some of them were brutal, and that's in the nicest way of doing it. People are passionate about the world of cheesesteaks. You've only got to look at Kwon Woo's comment, amazing name, Kwon Woo, to realise how sacred they are. So, in the loosest terms, we are making a very tiny homemade sub roll with onions, peppers, mushroom, steak, and a generic cheese that melts to make the internet happy. But let's not beat about the bush here. If I'm gonna make a decent Philly cheesesteak, I'm gonna do my research. Bobby Flay, who you guys have raved about in the past, has a lovely sounding recipe, but it takes 2.5 hours using ready-made hoagies, which, as far as I know, is not a term for multiple Hulk Hogans, by the way. That's pretty cool. Now, hoagies are a genuine thing. I have used them once or twice in the past, but this recipe also had more ingredients than I have seen people in a supermarket wearing pajamas recently. Now, if this really is a thing, I'm gonna start doing videos in my dressing gown and going to the bank in my lingerie. I don't have any lingerie, but if I did, that's what I'd do. Yep. Plus, we have a typically English sized car, so there's no room for things like poblano peppers, let alone cubano peppers. Of course I know what they are. Yep. But alas, we keep it minimal on this tiny cheese steak mission. It's kind of like the skimmed milk version of its creamier, older brother. But we are doing this. So first up, I grabbed my ingredients for a standard bread dome recipe, but I divided it by 10. Even with this, it's still enough to make like a shoe out of dough or something like that. Don't do that. Don't make a shoe out of dough. Don't do that. I've got bread flour, yeast, pretty much a speck of salt on there, and of course, warm H2O going into a ramekin for a mini bread making extravaganza. I was feeling pretty confident dough. It was then time to knead it on a board to get that tiny amount of yeast working and warm. Yeast prefers to party in warm conditions, so if you're having yeast over at any time, you better have your heating on. That was a good one. I like that one. That was. I wasn't sure if this was going to work. Putting the dough into a clean ramekin and using the high-tech version of a scaled down damp tea towel, which looks a little bit like a folded up kitchen towel, but I would not scrape that low. It was gonna work. I mean, putting it in a warm place to prove, look at that face of confidence. It's basically going into that warm place to prove, but did it? Well, you bet your jolly old Michael Jackson sequin glove, shamow! It did work dough. Work dough. That was an unintentional one, I'm sorry. We actually had a little air in that nugget of dough, which I could then shape into some sort of sub/Hulk hoagie inspired finger roll. Now, I don't have a mini baking tray yet, so it went in the oven on a mini sheet of baking parchment to bake away. And while the dough was proving, I could work on the filling, so I could use my craft knife to get a nice snug slice of cheese for cloaking it later, then slice up other fillings like green peppers, mushrooms, and onion. The onion was a little bit butch, so I thought I'd need the nail clippers to get decent strips, which again worked a charm for slicing up the ribeye steak, tearing off little pieces and leaving on a separate plate. I had some willing volunteers for any steak bits left over. Did you like the steak, guys? All right, yeah, I think you did. Now the baby sub roll came out great, slightly browned and looking a little bit like a naked kidney bean. It's looking great, really excited. I mean, crust me on this. It could have turned out pretty badly. I mean, genuinely, that's the first time I've ever made mini bread, and it worked. This changes everything. Or maybe not. Maybe it doesn't at all. So it was time to get the mini frying pan out. The tiniest speck of oil, probably the same amount currently sitting in uneducated drivers' cars right this moment. Get out there and check your dipstick. Your dipstick? Sorry, I just had a moment there. I felt like a dad making internet videos telling you what to do. And with the pan warmed, it all went in. The prepared sliced veggies and the steak. We ain't got time to wait on the veg and the steak separately, so it all went together. Although the steak did try and kind of bond together. It didn't want to let go. Never let go, Jack. Don't you say your goodbyes, Grace. And all that. Was her name Grace? No, it was Rose. Grace was my next door neighbour growing up. I don't know where that came from, but... It all cooked up in around about 45 seconds. I then took it off the heat to try and arrange it into some sort of patty shape. I still had too many ingredients. For the first time ever, I'd actually managed to overscale mini food. But we pushed on and I could lay that strip of cheese on top of a good old clump of miniature cheese steak lumpage, letting it melt all over. Once ready, it was carefully lifted out of the pan and placed onto the base of our roll. With our homemade sub roll lid on top, shabba dabba ding dong, we've done it. Orange for scale as ever, and it was a meal fit for a rodent. Now on that subject about rodents, I was tagged in a tweet the other day. Something about not watching a mini food video unless it's got a hamster in it. Well, after all that cooking, and yes, the ultimate question, did it fit on the Winnie the Pooh plate? Yes, it did. Hollywood-style technology, I'm eating this very tiny homemade sub roll with onions, peppers, mushrooms, steak, and a generic cheese that melts to make the internet happy, while surrounded by a selection of cute hamster images. Oh my gosh. I will make a big one now. Stonking. That's the best I got right now. I can't really invest in a hamster. I had to negotiate with Mrs. Barry for 2 pugs. My next negotiation is getting a disco ball in the kitchen. That's my priority. I want a disco ball in the kitchen. I do want that. But that is it, folks. I am done for this mini food attempt. There are loads more on the mini food playlist. Remember to subscribe for regular fun food videos and recipes. Mini food suggestions. I've done all of these on the side, so don't request these. I've already done them, and a lot of you ask for them, so they're right there. Have a good day. Remember to follow on social media for regular behind-the-scenes bits and bobs, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna stop now.